On the 29th of April 1945, in Bavaria, Germany, the gates of a prisoner of war camp were thrown open as American tanks entered. Inside, 30,000 inmates were found emaciated, battered, clinging to life. However, these were not victims of a concentration camp. They were U.S. soldiers, pilots, and members of Patton's forces. Among them were airmen downed over Germany, paratroopers taken at Arnhem, and infantrymen captured during the Battle of the Bulge. At the heart of the compound stood SS Colonel Heinrich Merkel, the camp commandant. He was encircled. The war was finished. His guards had vanished, yet he would not give in. When Patton's officers ordered him to cede control, Merkel gazed at them and uttered an astonishing response. "These captives are my responsibility. I refuse to release them. To take them, you'll have to end my life first." Upon receiving this news, Patton felt no anger. Instead, he grinned, for George Patton thrived on precisely such situations. Here is the account of Patton's response to the SS officer who kept his troops captive right up to the final moment. Before we delve in, if you'd like additional untold World War II stories, please subscribe. Fresh videos are released every week. To grasp the events at that camp, it's essential to appreciate the character of the man positioned in that courtyard, and also to see why Patton viewed this as a personal affront. By the end of April 1945, the conflict in Europe had essentially concluded. Germany was in ruins. Hitler was either deceased or on the brink. Allied forces were advancing through the remnants of the Reich, liberating concentration camps, releasing prisoners, and accepting mass surrenders. The majority of German commanders recognized the inevitable. Most commanders gave up peacefully, turned over their detainees, prevented needless violence, and aimed to live and return home. Yet not everyone understood the situation, and not everyone was concerned. Colonel Heinrich Merkel, however, was a devoted follower. He had been in the SS since before World War II, fought on the Eastern Front, and administered forced labor camps. He had observed the Reich's ascent and now witnessed its decline, yet he would not acknowledge this reality. Upon being ordered by his superiors to assume control of a POW camp near Moosburg, Bavaria, he regarded it as a final assignment, a last opportunity to serve the Führer. This camp housed thousands of Allied inmates, Americans, British, French soldiers who had been shot down, apprehended, or captured during the last fierce engagements. Merkel's directives were straightforward: maintain secure custody of the prisoners and refuse their release. Should the Americans arrive, he was to bargain for advantageous surrender conditions and utilize the captives as bargaining chips. However, Merkel interpreted his orders differently. He would engage in no negotiations and would not capitulate. These detainees were his charge, and he intended to keep them until Berlin issued explicit instructions for their release. The difficulty was that Berlin no longer operated as a functional government, and the command structure had collapsed. No further orders were forthcoming. On April 29, units of the U.S. 14th Armored Division, part of Patton's Third Army, arrived on the fringes of Moosburg. For days, they had been speeding through Bavaria, liberating towns and emptying camps along the way, upon scouts informing them of a huge POW camp ahead, containing tens of thousands of USN troops. The division commander promptly dispatched a delegation bearing a white flag. Their message was straightforward: "The war has ended. Surrender the camp. Let the prisoners go. There's no need for anyone to die today." The American officers anticipated a brief negotiation, perhaps a bit of bargaining over conditions, or a plea for the guards' safe exit. Typical war's end protocol. Instead, they encountered Colonel Merkel. He greeted them at the entrance, tall and slender, still clad in his complete SS uniform despite the sweltering weather. His officers lined up behind him, armed but anxious. They recognized the war was over and wished to give up. However, Merkel was their commander, and within the SS, defying orders meant death. The American lieutenant issued the surrender ultimatum. Merkel listened without speaking. Then he replied in flawless English, "I am the commandant of this camp. These prisoners fall under my jurisdiction. I have received no directives to free them. I will not relinquish this facility to you. If you try to seize it by force, I will regard it as an act of war and react accordingly." The American officer was taken aback. "Colonel, the war is finished. Germany has given up. There is no justification for resistance." Merkel's face remained impassive. "Germany has not capitulated. The Führer continues to fight. I have not received any orders." "Orders? These men stay under my authority. Colonel, we possess tanks and artillery. We will seize this camp regardless of your surrender. Merkel moved nearer. Then you must end my life first, for I will not release a single prisoner as long as I live. The American team withdrew to their own lines and briefed their commander on the situation. He promptly radioed higher authorities. Within 60 minutes, the report arrived at 3rd Army HQ. Patton was inside his command trailer studying maps of the push into Austria when his chief of staff delivered the news. General, there's a problem at Moosburg, the POW camp. The SS commandant refuses to surrender. He claims he will fight before freeing the captives. Patton raised his eyes from the map. How many prisoners? Around 30,000, sir. The majority are American. Patton's jaw clenched. These were not mere captives. They were his own troops from 3rd Army divisions, taken during the assault. Soldiers who had fought under his leadership and found themselves behind enemy lines. What is the commandant's name? Colonel Heinrich Merkel of the SS, a hardened fanatic. He reportedly told our officers that they would need to kill him to take the camp. Patton rose from his seat. He approached the map and located Moosburg, just 15 miles away, less than an hour by jeep. Summon my driver, Patton said in a low tone. His staff exchanged knowing looks. They recognized what that voice meant. Sir, we can attempt a negotiation. We could bring Patton in and block his path. I will not bargain with an SS officer who holds my men hostage. Ready my jeep. I'm heading to that camp, General, but that's not the plan right now. 30 minutes later, Patton's jeep pulled up at the Moosburg camp. He wore his battle attire, a helmet marked with 3 stars, and his ivory-handled revolvers on his belt. He was not alone. A full infantry company and a platoon of tanks followed him. The gates remained shut. German sentries stood in the watchtowers, rifles aimed but hesitant. Inside the wire, thousands of captives watched in shocked silence. They spotted the American tanks. They saw the 3-star general step out of his jeep. News flashed through the camp like a spark. Patton's here. He came for us. Patton walked straight to the main gate. His aide accompanied him, carrying a white flag. The infantry formed a defensive ring. The tanks positioned themselves with unobstructed lines of fire. Patton stopped 10 feet from the gate and yelled in a voice that resonated across the entire compound. Colonel Merkel, I am General George S. Patton of the 3rd Army. I have come for my men. Open this gate and immediately surrender your command. A long silence followed. Then Colonel Merkel appeared. He walked slowly from the commandant's building, crossing the yard alone. His officers stayed behind. His guards remained in their towers. He wanted to face Patton by himself. Merkel stopped on the far side of the gate. The 2 men stood 15 feet apart, separated by chain link and barbed wire. Patton glared at him with icy fury. Merkel returned the stare with the devotion of a man who had nothing left to trust except his directives. General Patton, Merkel said calmly, I have already explained my stance to your officers. I cannot relinquish this camp without authorization from my commanders. Patton's voice turned frigid. Those commanders are dead or taken prisoner. The Führer is deceased. Germany has surrendered. The conflict is finished. No further orders will arrive. I have not received any official notice of that. Patton stepped 1 pace closer to the gate. You are holding 30,000 American soldiers, prisoner, my troops, men who fought under my authority. And you claim you won't free them because you lack a piece of paper from a government that no longer operates? Merkel stood rigid. I am obeying my instructions. Your instructions are meaningless. Your chain of command has collapsed. The only barrier between these men and freedom is you. I will not desert my post. Patton's face grew darker. He looked at Merkel with the utter disdain meant for something beneath notice. Let me explain something to you, Colonel. I have tanks encircling this compound. I have artillery aimed at every building. I have infantry ready to assault these gates. I could take this camp in 15 minutes. The only question is how many people die when I do. Merkel didn't flinch. Then you will be accountable for their deaths, not me. That was when Patton spoke the words that would be echoed for decades. He moved even closer to the gate. His voice dropped to almost a whisper, but every word carried across the quiet camp. Colonel, I have spent 4 years of my life fighting across 2 continents. I have witnessed things that would break most people. Throughout my life, I've slain foes who were deserving of death and others who were merely obeying commands. Yet in all my years, I've never encountered anyone as contemptible as you. Merkel's complexion turned pallid, yet Patton had more to say. Dressed in your SS uniform, you claim you were just carrying out orders and doing your duty, but we both see your true nature. You're a coward. For years, You abused and starved detainees, and now that the conflict is over, you're attempting to hide behind those very detainees to protect your own worthless existence. Merkel began to respond, but Patton cut him off. Do you believe that keeping these men captive grants you any power? Do you think it makes you significant? It does not. It reduces you to nothing. Because when I pass through that gate, and I will, you are left with precisely two options. Either you unlock it and give up like a soldier, or you compel me to seize it, and in that case, I will make certain you face a war crimes tribunal and be executed for your treatment of these men. The entire camp fell quiet. 30,000 captives stood still, observing. German sentinels observed from their posts. Merkel's commanders peered from the structures. Patton moved nearer to the barrier. Your commands mean nothing to me. Your allegiance to a deceased dictator is irrelevant. My concern is for my soldiers, and I will bring them home this very day. Hence, decide at once, Colonel. Either unbar this entrance or I'll ram a tank through it, and you'll have to justify to the Almighty why you opted to perish for no cause. For an extended period, Merkel remained silent. His skin had turned gray. His hands trembled. The unwavering conviction he had maintained for years was disintegrating beneath the impact of Patton's statements. At last, Merkel uttered something. His tone was scarcely hearable. What assurance can you offer that my troops will receive equitable treatment? Patton's reply came swiftly and frostily. I give you my pledge that they will be handled in compliance with the Geneva Convention, a standard far surpassing what you afforded to your detainees. Now, unlock the gate. Merkel remained motionless for another instant. Subsequently, without speaking, he pivoted and strode toward the watchtower. He issued a solitary hand gesture. The entrance swung wide. Patton advanced through. His foot soldiers followed behind. The captives burst into applause. 30,000 shouts, sobs, and celebrations erupted. Individuals who had been confined for extended periods, malnourished and battered, were abruptly liberated. Patton proceeded straight to the closest cluster of American detainees. He delivered no address. He exchanged no handshakes. He merely stated, "You are headed home." Next, he faced his commanders. Provide these men with food, garments, and transfer them to hospitals. I require every last one of them to leave this camp before nightfall. Colonel Merkel was taken into custody immediately. He faced a war crimes tribunal, was found guilty, and received a 5-year prison term. He completed 12 years before succumbing to a heart attack in 1957. The freeing of Moosburg ranked among the most extensive one-day prisoner of war salvations of the entire conflict, and Patton personally saw to it that each detainee was registered, cared for, and repatriated. Long after, camp survivors were queried about their most vivid memory of that event. Nearly everyone gave an identical response. They recalled Patton positioned at the entrance, confronting an SS colonel, and declining to retreat until his soldiers were liberated. A previous detainee articulated it perfectly. We were aware that Patton was formidable. We recognized his bravery, yet on that day, we discovered another quality. He wasn't merely our commander, he was our commander, and he arrived for us at our hour of greatest need. Patton seldom discussed Moosburg. In his journal, he penned just one sentence: "Freed a prisoner camp today, brought my troops back." The SS commandant realized that taking American soldiers hostage was an error he would forever lament. Within days, the tale of Patton's remarks to Colonel Merkel circulated throughout the Third Army. It grew into a legend, underscoring that Patton did not merely lead his troops, he battled alongside them. He safeguarded his men and stood up to anyone, even as conflict neared its conclusion, to ensure their return. Imagine being one of those captives witnessing Patton stride through the gate, aware that he arrived personally to set you free. How would that transform your perspective on leadership? Share your thoughts in the comments. For the story of how Patton disobeyed Eisenhower's explicit commands to save his own son-in-law from enemy territory, that video follows. Click subscribe to ensure you don't overlook it.